Before I address the rape of Safiyyah, I must point out to the listeners the following facts that can easily elude the attention of people who have not studied the sordid subjects of Muhammad, his Sunnah and Sharia. 1. In the Arabic language at the time of Muhammad, there are two distinct words: zawaj, meaning marriage, and nikah, meaning having sex, the F word in English, or to rape, a form of forceful sex. Invariably, the followers of Muhammad, in attempting to sugarcoat Muhammad's despicable deeds, they actually deliberately deceive Arabic ignoramus people by translating words falsely. For example, they translate nikah to marriage, which is not true. 2. They are so ashamed that even in the case of Aisha, they contort hadiths to make her age 19 years old, not 9 years, when Muhammad nakahaha, i.e. penetrated her. 3. If they are so shocked and ashamed, why do they continue to believe? Excellent question, to which the answer is also simple. They are utterly without logic, because the most virulent virus known to mankind is called Quran, which, when it lodges itself into the brain of its victim or host, it almost instantly eradicates the area of logic, followed by the areas dealing with compassion and mercy, turning the victim into a zombie, the living dead, that we watch with horror their actions on TV all over the world almost daily. 4. Another deceiving word used by Arab translators is that of ghazwa, which actually means ambush, raid, sudden attack on unsuspecting people. They translate it to battle as if the two opponents were aware of each other's presence and or intentions. 5. Whenever Muhammad wanted to despoil, rape, plunder and slaughter others, he pretended that he received an inspiration from his God, Allah, informing him of the intentions of his would-be victims. 6. The tribes that the Muslims call Jews were actually native aboriginal Arabs who converted willingly to the religion of the Jews, just as were the Christian Arab tribes. These were not Israelites or Europeans, but indigenous natives. They were Judaized Arabs who in Quran's very clear Arabic are called الَّذِينَ هَادُوا. Hence, all the hadith reports about Muhammad that humanity has are the one-sided, uncorroborated, unsubstantiated, and invariably concocted ones by Muhammad and his followers to excuse and or explain away his evil and ungodly deeds. Having set the stage, now I shall address the story as recorded by the Muhammadans in chapter and verse. I'm going to quote almost verbatim from the foremost American authority on Muhammad, Mr. Craig Wynne, in his monumental book, Prophet of Doom. I quote, "Year 7 of the Islamic era got off to a horrendous start. The Prophet, without provocation, led a terrorist raid to torment another Jewish community. Tabari 8.116, Ishaq 0.510. After his return from Hudaybiyah, Allah's Messenger marched against Khaybar. He halted with his army in a valley between the people of Khaybar and the Ghatfan tribe to prevent the latter from assisting the Jews. The motivation for the attack was obvious. Muhammad's militant and mercenary horde was up in arms over his capitulation at Hudaybiyah. Out of control, they would have turned against their warlord if he hadn't found a way to satiate their growing lust for blood, babes and booty. For those who think this conclusion is unfair and overly cynical, consider the following facts. When the Muslims failed to capture the Meccan caravan at Badr, the Prophet stole property and possessions of the Qaynuqa Jews. Following the Uhud defeat, he immediately plundered the Nadir Jews. The siege of the trench was not only the third in a series of 4 battles without booty, it was also bloodless. So Islam's demented dictator provided slaughter, sex and spoil by murdering, enslaving and robbing the Qurayza Jews. The Jews had become easy prey. So following the bootyless and bloodless peace of Hudaybiyah, Muhammad set out to terrorize the only Jewish community within reach that he hadn't previously sacked and plundered, Khaybar. It was their turn to feel the wrath of Islam. Incidentally, neither Allah, Muhammad, Ishaq, Tabari, Bukhari, nor Muslim made any attempt to justify Islam's ruthless assault on the Khaybar Jews. They knew the truth and didn't try to disguise it. Islam was no longer a religion. It was a terrorist dogma. The first Muslims weren't disciples, they were mercenaries. Muhammad wasn't a prophet, he was a pirate. Allah wasn't a god, he was the devil incarnate. And together they were about to prove that they were a blight on humankind. As transparent as ever, these words directly from Muhammad's lips demonstrate that he was working for the Prince of Darkness, the great deceiver, the adversary, Satan. Ishaq 5:11. When the apostle raided the people, he waited until morning, and then he attacked. He came to Khaybar by night. When morning came, and he did not hear the call to prayer, he rode, and we rode with him. We met the workers of Khaybar coming out in the morning with their spades and baskets. When they saw the Prophet and our army, they cried, Muhammad with his force. They turned tail and fled. The apostle yelled, Allahu Akbar, Khaybar is destroyed. When we arrive at a people's square, it is a bad morning for them. There is no ambiguity in what I am reciting. The Jews of Khaybar were going about their daily life of cultivating their land without the slightest inkling that they were about to be slaughtered by Muhammad and his thugs. Had it been true that they were intending to attack Muhammad, as he and his supporters falsely claim, they would have been prepared for ambush or assault. All of the deceptions, justifications, and apologies ever spoken would be insufficient to make this horrible day appear religious. And it does not stand alone. Khaybar was but one of 75 merciless raids instigated by the first Muslims. Armed raiders attacked civilians for no other reason than to seize their possessions. Allahu Akbar was the terrorist prayer of fear, the terror verse. Ibn Ishaq's compilation of Islamic scripture, the inspired Sira or biography of the Prophet, is the earliest and most accurate accounting of Muhammad's life and of the formation of Islam. It was compiled a century before Tabari, Muslim, and Bukhari. But for those who might want to dismiss the hadith report on the basis that it sounds too condemning of the Prophet, consider these confirming words from Imam Bukhari. Of his collection, Islamic sages wrote, second only to the Quran, Bukhari's hadith is the most important book in Islam. Bukhari 5.510. Allah's apostle reached Khaybar at night. It was his habit that whenever he reached an enemy at night, he would not attack them till it was morning. When morning came, the Jews came out with their spades and baskets. When they saw the Prophet, they said, Muhammad, oh dear God, it's Muhammad and his army. The Prophet shouted, Allahu Akbar, Khaybar is destroyed. For whenever we approach a nation, evil will be the morning for those who have been warned. The Prophet had their men killed, their children and women were taken as captives. Calling the Jews a hostile nation is a farce. Muhammad and his Muslim militants, according to their own accounting, had either murdered, terrorized, enslaved, or raped tens of thousands of Jews, yet the Jews had killed but one Muslim. The more you know, the worse it gets. This is why Islamic leaders must keep good people from reading these words. It is why they lie to themselves, to our citizens, the media, and politicians alike. Islam is self-destructive, mutilating its own credibility. The warning these Jews were given before evil befell them was no different than Muslims provide today. The 9/11 terrorists shouted Allahu Akbar before they slaughtered thousands. By proclaiming the prayer of fear, Islamic terrorists tell us who they are, what they believe, who they serve, and why they kill. Tabari 8.117. Dia had asked the messenger for Safiyyah. Bukhari 4.143. It was then that the beauty of Safiyyah was described to Muhammad. Her husband had been killed, actually brutalized, so Allah's apostle selected her for himself. Ishaq 5:11. When Dia protested, wanting to keep Safiyyah for himself, the apostle traded for Safiyyah by giving Dia her two cousins. The women of Khaybar were distributed among the Muslims. Muhammad made Safiyyah her manumission as her mahar. Perverted is too kind a word for this man. He became the first serial rapist to call himself a prophet. And make no mistake, having sex with a captive is rape. I recognize that this is hard to believe. It's so inconsistent with our popular view of prophets and religions. Yet the bloodied and broken bodies of the Khaybar Jews, like the Qurayza before them, reveal what Islam does to men. Pure, fundamental, original and uncorrupted Islam turns men into terrorists. They become as immoral as the beast who seduced them. The economic plight of the Islamic world is a direct result of Muhammad's unwillingness to engage in honest work. It is why the Islamic nations remain the world's least productive. In fact, Muslims as a whole are destructive economically, stifling far more commerce than they inspire. And that's because their leader was a pirate. Islam was financed by stolen booty and the slave trade. As parasites, they survived by sucking every productive host within a camel's ride dry. As a direct result of Muhammad's personal failings, the Islamic world is devoid of everything civilized people hold dear. Muslims wallow in poverty. Life isn't worth living. They have no freedom of speech or religion. With the educational process focused on Quranic studies, Muslims are among the most poorly educated and most indoctrinated people on earth. Following the example of a perverted sexist, Muslim men abuse women, and they are violent. End quotes. As I have proven beyond a shadow or even a reasonable doubt, Muhammad's Quran, his Sunnah, Sharia, and his fundamentalist believers are hate-mongering, war-mongering, misogynist, racist, vile, and hence ungodly entities.